Wouldn't it be great if you could 5x the number of sales that you make while actually taking less sales calls? Well, guess what? In this video, I'm going to walk you through a sales motion system as well as a single automation that we installed into a two-person insurance provider agency. And we were able to do just that. Over the course of 3 months, they 5x the number of sales that they made, and they did so by cutting their call volume in half. What's up? My name is Kajana. Most people call me Cage. I run a business called Powered by Aloha, and what we do is we identify bottlenecks in your business that stop you from scaling, and then we eliminate it. Our whole concept is when you decide to, you should be able to scale revenue and delivery the very next day. So we find bottlenecks and we eliminate them so you can do that. It sounds super fancy. It's actually very, very straightforward. But in today's video, I'm going to walk you through an adjustment that we made to the sales funnel of an insurance agent, two-person insurance agent team, as well as the very, very simple automation we put in place that allowed them to, over the course of 3 months, 5x the total number of sales that they made. So with that, let's jump right into it. So first up, if you've been following for a while, you know that I did a different format change to our videos. Something I realized is that because we cut this up and put it onto like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, it'd be a lot easier if I made the video be closer in format to a vertical video than a horizontal video. It'll make the pixels better. So anyways, look at me eliminating my own bottlenecks in our business. So with that, let's talk a bit about the facts first, how we identified what the bottlenecks were, and then we'll map out the actual implementation and how you can do something similar to yourself. Now, I do want to point out, in this method, we are talking about a sales call based funnel. So this is going to be like your HVAC, your plumbers, your insurance agents, your coaches, consultants, any sales model where you need to identify qualified leads and then attempt to sell qualified leads either like on a phone call or in a Zoom session. That is who this automation is for and who this video is really for. But like all of the content that we put out, the real name of the game is those actions, those solutions simply follow the actual bottleneck that needs to be solved. We first need to know what the bottleneck is, then we can determine what's the best way to solve that, because you can come up with tons of different solutions, but if none of them solve your core problem, that actual bottleneck stopping you from growing or from scaling, then who cares, like really and truly. So with that, so here we are, we have this. Let's start with the facts. So this team that came to me, they were a two-person insurance team. When they came to me, they were already running paid ads, meta ads specifically, running meta ads. And they did the very typical thing in the insurance world, that is they ran meta ads, which were a lead form ad. So if you've ever seen an ad that shows up on Meta, you click on it, and what it does is it then pulls up a little form inside of Facebook or Instagram and asks you questions, and you complete that. They are running a form of that lead form into an outbound call that someone would, whoever's on the other side would, after they receive the lead, as fast as possible, they would attempt to call that person in order to book them into an opportunity. Now, when they were doing that, here are the metrics of their sales process. So they were doing 12 calls per week, which translated down to 2 qualified leads, and we'll talk more about that in a moment, which then resulted in 1 sale within 14 days. Now, this is important for them because the way that their sales cycle worked is they would they would get someone interested, they do the close, they have to run through the paperwork, KYC, blah, blah, before they actually make their money back. Now, this will be different for your business model because obviously some businesses run on like a 1 week cycle, some businesses run on a 14-day cycle, some businesses run on 21, 30-day cycle, so on and so forth. But the main thing here we're looking at is how quickly do you get cash in the door, because the more quickly you get cash in the door, the more quickly you can, one, pay your salespeople, pay yourself, but you can also put more money into advertising and marketing in order to get more people to come through the funnel overall and just make, boatloads of money in concept. So with that, 12 calls per week, 2 qualified leads, 1 sale within 14 days. Now, the important part here is that when they were running this, because they're insurance, their target market and their product fit is they're primarily trying to sell annuities. And in their annuities, they're specifically looking to sell annuities to people who had more than $1 million across their 401k, IRA, so on and so forth. So they were essentially going for high net worth individuals who would have a substantial amount of money available to them, who were aged between like 50 years old and 60 years old. That was kind of like their target demographic, 50 to 60 years old. Cannot spell. Years old. So that was their demographic. So what they were doing is when they came to me, they were running these and they were already getting these metrics, which are all right, they're fine. They're not great. They're not horrible either. To give you a visual of what that looks like, if we come down here, I'm going to write a traffic, and that's going to be meta ads, would then go into a lead form. And this would be, for those who, if you're unaware, a lead form would capture your name, your contact info, so your first name, potentially last name, phone number, email, so that they could be contacted. Then what would happen is they would have a rep reaches out. I should put lead form submitted. Then a rep would reach out and the rep would attempt to book a call. And then after they book a call, they would then attempt to sell on call. And that was basically their model. Very, very common model. Lots of people do something similar to this. Meta ads into a lead form in order to get your information, get some basic things available. Then after that, a rep would reach out via phone and or text in order to then book them onto a call with a closer role, if you will. And then on the closer role, on the closing call, the salesperson would then attempt to sell them into actually buying the product, in this case, an annuity. But this is a lot of different things. Could be HVAC, could be construction, could be consulting, could be coaching. Very, very common business model that exists. So just to give you a visual of what that looks like. So we come up here. Now we look at this. Let's look at some of the issues that exist in this. So one big problem is if we look at the calls. Oh, wrong. That's not a good color. 1 second. Let's change that to green. So if we look at the number of calls per week to the qualified leads, 12 and 2 means 1 in 6, which is way beneath benchmark, right? If you're running a funnel like this, you should be generating at least 50% of your leads should be qualified. 1 in 6 means what? 18.75, I think. 18.75% of them are qualified. That's a very, very low number, which directly correlates to the number of sales made. Now, the good news is that their qualified leads to sales ratio, which is 50%, is actually really good. That's above benchmark. Typically in a booked call funnel, you're looking, or rather in a book a call funnel, you're looking at a 20 to 30% of conversion is like your lower upper benchmark. Above 30, you're fucking crushing it. So we can see right here that one issue they're having is there's a gap between right here. Now, when we look at this, we could ask some questions, and that is, why is it that we were having this problem? So my initial thought is that their leads were broke. Maybe these are just bad leads that they were looking at. So then I went in and I analyzed some of their sales calls. I look at who was buying, who wasn't buying. I look at the profile. And what I realized was something very, very simple. Yes, they did have broke leads. But the reason that they had broke leads is because there was not enough friction inside of their or inside of their lead qualification process to get people onto a call. So here's what we did. Let's go back down here into the funnel format. So what we did is this is the first implementation that we did. And what we did is we took this lead form and we instead changed this to be onto a VSL landing page. So if you don't know what it is, the VSL landing page is very simple, very common tool. That is, the VSL landing page is a page that it directly calls out who this video is made for. VSL being video sales letter. It calls out who is this video made for, and then in that video it presents a very compelling reason for why it's worth your time to book a call with this person or this organization. Very common, people do it all the time. So what we did is that we went in and we made a VSL landing page. Then from the VSL landing page, on it was a DQ form. And very simply, what we found is that the people who were submitting the lead form, some people were qualified, some people weren't qualified. So we went through all the people who bought and we identified what were the base qualifying components that made them a good fit to buy this product. So we go back up here. That was they had at least $1 million available to them across like their IRA, 401k, and all those things. And they were 50 to 60 years old, and their annual income was above $400,000. Those were the fields that we put into their form literally, because basically if they didn't hit all of these criteria, rather if they didn't hit the $1 million in available, or technically in like brokerage and retirement that were able for rollovers, but we're getting very technical, that's not the point, and they didn't hit the annual income of $400,000, then they could not buy. They were not a qualified lead. So why would we give them the opportunity to hop onto the calendar? So what we did is we put in the VSL landing page, and as a result of that, if they were qualified, they land on a book a call page. I'm going to put qualified here. But on the other hand, if they were not qualified, disqualified, they would land on a value add page that educated them on what annuities are, how they work, and why, even though we would love to help you with one, at this current time, they're not a good fit. Now, by just putting this level of qualification, which is a very simple automation that really, if you run a VSL funnel, you should absolutely have a DQ form, because it's one of the most high leverage automations you can put into a funnel like this. Because if we can take you down from, or rather do the math, if you're doing 12 calls a week, but only 2 people are qualified, you're essentially wasting 10 calls. But if we can, imagine we keep that exact same math and we only do 2 qualified leads, but we are able to reduce you down to 4 calls, going from 12 calls to 2 qualified leads is much less advantageous than doing 4 calls for 2 qualified leads. You essentially just, what is that? You eventually 3x your output by simply not allowing bad leads onto your calendar. And as we call it, never have a tire kicker on your calendar ever again, is one of the biggest leverage points that small businesses miss. So back to the example. So here we are, and we have the qualified, which lands on a book a call page, and the disqualified, which lands on a value add page. After the book a call page, they would then land on a confirmation page. On the confirmation page, we put a video on there that said, hey, let me high level for you what to expect on this call, what you should prep and what you should do, because if you do all those things, you're going to be best prepared for that call. At the same time, what we did is we then sent them a due diligence deck. Now, in the confirmation email that would be sent out, because if you don't know this, you should 100% have a confirmation email that goes out after someone schedules a call with you. In that confirmation email, we put in a due diligence deck, and basically all this was is it was in this model specifically, it was a 12 slide deck that covered all of the questions people always had about annuities. How does this work? Why should I trust you? Why should I trust this product? What are questions people often ask? What are frequently asked questions that people don't understand about this? And what we did is we would then put the due diligence deck into the confirmation email and send it to someone and basically say, hey, before our call, or not our call, the insurance provider's call, insurance agent's call, before you show up to this call, it's extremely important you review the due diligence deck, because it will answer all the questions that you have. The point of our call is not to educate you on annuities. The point of our call is to customize the plan to see what annuity works best for you if it's a good fit. If it's not, we won't even talk about it. And that's basically how we framed up the due diligence deck, because by doing it this way, we were able to get over as many objections as possible in order to make the sales process, the selling process, easier. Now, back to the example. So we put the due diligence deck in, and then what would happen is they would then show up on a call. And then from there, we would then sell. So if we look at this, book a call, they would book. Then after they book, they automatically receive the due diligence deck, which I'm just going to make a different format of the arrow to easily explain that. And then they would eventually show up to the call, and then they would sell them. Now, by just doing this, by reformatting the funnel just a little bit, adding in the VSL, adding in the DQ form so that only qualified leads were sent to the page, and then from the book a call, if they book, they would then be sent to confirmation page, and then on the confirmation page, the due diligence deck call had sell. By just doing this, in this literal example of this client, we were able to take this down to 6 calls per week, which resulted in 5 qualified leads, which resulted in 2 sales within 14 days, just by making this very, very, very small adjustment to how it works in order to create more leverage. Nothing else changed. They did not go in and, days. I wish I could spell. They did not go in and spend more money, did not do any work. In fact, they did half the amount of work to essentially double their output. Now, once we got that dialed in, we then took the next 3 months really refining it. 3 months later, they were doing 30 calls a week, on which they were qualifying 25 leads, and they were closing 12 sales within 4 days. Now, the only reason I'm not saying like, oh, they were making $100,000 extra is because the way that annuities work, you get paid on a percentage based upon like the structuring of that, which I'm no insurance or annuities expert, so don't ask me that stuff. But I do know that they were averaging between 1 and 10% depending on what the structure is. So I can't say, oh, they made $500,000 extra per month, because it really varied based upon like what carrier and what premium and that stuff. And I, again, not an expert, I don't want to get into that part. But just from a mathematical perspective, we are essentially taking them from closing 2 sales to closing 12 sales by doing less work. So if you think of it from a leverage perspective, imagine, well, I think a very common thing that people misunderstand when they think about scaling and leverage is they think, oh, it's just more and more and more. That's not necessarily true. If you can use 10 hours of work to generate $100, leverage or scale is being able to do 10 hours of work to make $200, doubling your output. Just as important, leverage or scale is being able to make $100 for what is now 5 hours of work. Same output, half the input. And that's kind of how it breaks down when we think of leverage and scaling in these opportunities. So if I bring back this concept up here where they went from 12 calls to 6 calls to get better results, this is the important part. They did half the workload to make double the money, which is essentially a 4x increase. Well, 4.5 if you want to be like super technical, in terms of results. Like that, like full stop. Think about that for a moment. Imagine that you can do less work, or selling in this case, but actually make more dollars. It's crazy, but it's not that crazy. It's actually how the entire point of scaling and leverage works in automations. If we can identify the repetitive things that allow you to be able to do things better, faster, quicker, better, faster, more profitably, and install those simple systems, then we can essentially get the exact same output for less work, less input, or we can do the exact same input work in order to double, triple, quadruple your output over time. Leverage is the key word here. So that's it. We went in and we said, we put these systems in place. Looking down here, we changed their format so that the leads landed on a VSL page that better educated them. Then when they submitted a form, if they were disqualified, it sent them to a value add page, did not give them the opportunity to book a call. If they were qualified, they landed on a book a call page. I should put book a call. Oh, cannot spell today. Then they would book their call, which would put them on a confirmation page, which frames up what's going to be happening on the call. Then in the confirmation email, we sent them a due diligence deck saying, hey, make sure you review this deck. Something I didn't say in this video, but I think is very important is, after we would send them the book a call page in the after they would book a call and they land on the confirmation page, and they're sent the due diligence deck by a confirmation email, we would then actually have a rep reach out and ask them, did you get the due diligence deck? Did you get the due diligence deck? This way, this became an additional touch point. So we would then have them reach out and say, hey, first name, it's so-and-so with XYZ form business. Did you get the due diligence deck? Question mark. And then what that would do is that would bring top of mind again the due diligence deck. And what would happen is this person, this sales rep, would then work this person over and over and over again until they got the yes that I reviewed it. Then it would say, okay, cool, so awesome. Glad you reviewed it. Make sure that you reviewed again before the call, because we really want to make sure you're fully aware of how everything works. Because the point of the call is not to educate you on annuities. The point of the call is to customize whether or not an annuity is a good fit for your needs in the retirement phase of your life, or something to that effect. Again, I'm not the expert there. I'm just like giving you the broad concept of how we implemented this. So we did that, and then same in that same concept. After the due diligence deck was sent via email, we then sent emails over and over and over again saying, don't forget, calls coming up, review the due diligence deck, 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 which sounds like it's overkill and unnecessary, but something you have to always be aware of is that when you are selling in your business and you're selling a product, you are the expert in your product. So you're obviously going to understand how all of these things work. When you are selling someone, a customer, I don't want to sound crass when I say this, but clients and customers are fucking idiots. They have no idea what you're doing. They have no idea how any of this works. If they did, they wouldn't be hiring you. They would just bring someone in-house to get it done. Or they would go to one of their existing advisors and tell them how they want it to be implemented. But if that's not the case, they have no idea. So it's incredibly important that we are consistently putting in front of potential sales prospects what it is that they need to see and understand prior to talking to you. Because if we can do that, they're going to be more educated and more aware of what does or doesn't work, so that you are not spending the first 30 minutes of your call educating them on the opportunity and then trying to customize it and sell it to them in the remaining 30 minutes. But you could instead, on one hand, take that 30 minutes and reduce it down to 5 minutes in some sales models, and then spend 30 minutes customizing and selling them. Or in other models, you keep an hour-long call and you spend the entire call customizing and pitching them, because you did all of your education about the opportunity before they get on the call. And that's getting a bit away from the concept of this. We're really talking about like the automation and workflow adjustments. But these are important things to know as you are looking at, where is the bottleneck in my business? If the issue is the broke leads, is it that I'm just not qualifying my leads enough? Whereas if the issue in this case is there's not enough friction, how can I increase friction to make sure that they're only qualified leads who are getting into my calendar? Because if we can add that, then you're only, in this example, if you can cut down half your call time in order to double your sales, that's a great return on your time investment, more leverage, all that kind of stuff. Now, with that being said, what I would love is if you can take this and actually take this information and implement it into your own business. That would be excellent, because I make this hoping that you can just take it and put it into your business, right? You can, if you build this funnel here, you can absolutely build this funnel here. It's not very difficult. It's like just taking the same components and spreading it out. And if that's something that's beyond you, super cool. Would love to chat about it. So down below, we have a call to schedule. We have a link down below in the description to schedule a growth call. And basically what we'll do is we will look at your business and identify what is the single largest bottleneck stopping you from being able to scale revenue or delivery tomorrow. Once we identify that bottleneck, we will then put together a plan. Okay, if this is the bottleneck, here's exactly how we would solve this. Here's the automation versus here's the system that we would want to implement in order to solve that bottleneck, in order to create more leverage, more scalability, so on and so forth. So if that's you and you run a business that's making that $1 to $5 million range, and you know your business is constrained by you, and you know that there's a way it can be removed, we'd love to have a conversation. Link is down below. Schedule a call. And with that, like always, thank you so much for your attention. That's the most valuable thing that you can offer me. And I hope to see you around the internet. Later.